one of those videos that I really did not want to do, but we're going to talk about it today. Is the American dream on life support? In this video, we'll talk about what that means for Black women who want to move abroad and how it actually can be a good thing. Hey, girl, hey, my name is Tanisha Mercer, and I help Black women solo travel and move abroad. If that sounds like you, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to share, comment, and like the video below. Let's get into it. This is a hard topic. This is a hard video. Based upon the popularity of the video I did last week about where to move to save money, this is definitely needed. But y'all, like, the numbers are very sobering. The inflation that's going on right now in the US, the cost of living in the US, the attack on wages in the US, we know that the math, baby, the math is not mathing. Like, people are, it is historic 40-year level inflation. Inflation not seen in 40 plus years. Wages are not increasing, wages are primarily stagnant. If you are a Black American, if you are just Black, brown, whatever, you already know how things are for us economically, especially if you are a Black woman in the US. Black women are the audiences here and on this channel. And the one thing I won't do, refuse to do, is to argue in anybody's comments about our lived experiences, 400 plus years being in the US, right, as a culture, as a Black American culture. So we are going to argue. We know facts are facts, right? We know that it is a fact that there is systemic obstacles. Financially, we are doing far less better. We know that our average household wealth is pennies in some cases compared to other majority wealth, right? We know that there is an extreme lag. We do not have the generational wealth. We don't have the generational assets. And so when it comes to this conversation, I think Black women particularly, it's an important one to have. What we're finding out, and I'm going to read from a Business Insider article, and this article talks about, officially, it's called ALICE. So ALICE stands for, basically, it's an acronym for Americans who are asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So what we would call, you got a job, but you live in check to check, okay? This is now becoming more commonplace. If you are for Black folks, we know what this means. And again, it's one of those things where I'm always really cautious and careful because as Black people, we have experienced this already. We know that we do not earn the same as Brad Chad, okay? We don't earn the same as Karen. We don't. And so whenever the media is out here giving acronyms to live in check to check, you know that Black people have experienced this overwhelmingly. Like, this is our reality. So I definitely find it interesting that this is what they're calling folks who live check to check, because we know our experience, economic experience, our socioeconomic experience in America, we know what this feels like. But essentially, it describes people who are they're making just enough money on the job that they don't qualify for food stamps or any kind of federal assistance, but not enough to be able to afford rent and health care. I don't know if y'all have been living under a rock, but I've been gone officially from the US for almost a year and a half now, right? That I've lived in Paris. I moved in January of 2023 to Paris, France, full time. Before that, I spent extensive time here. But I have not been gone long enough to where I'm unaware of what's happening right now in the US. My family is still there. My mom, my brothers and sisters, my children, right? My adult children, they are paying rent, they are paying bills. I am well aware of how the math is indeed not mathing in terms of from a personal finance perspective, and how right now it is rent is out of control. Have you seen how much rent costs in Atlanta? Have you seen how much rent costs in San Francisco? Oh, forget San Francisco. It is so bad in places like San Francisco and the Bay Area that your tech companies like Google, Microsoft, and some of all those other folks, right? They are just basically like, you can work here, but we're not paying for y'all. We're not paying for no housing relocation. It's too high. Okay. We will not cover you. At one point, they would at least cover people for if they relocated. If you relocated to the Bay Area or California, as we all know, wages there are a bit higher and also costs are a bit higher, right? But these companies are now saying, hold up, we will give you a job here, but baby, you need to stay where you at, okay? Because the rent is renting here. And if you, but not only just Cali, even when it comes to areas like West Virginia, okay, areas that you used to be able to eke out a living, areas like rural parts of Georgia, everywhere is expensive, y'all. It is insane. New York, we already know that New York is going to be always on the top end of the rental market. It's crazy right now how much people are paying. And so it gets to the question of, how are people surviving? How are people affording the US right now? Now, if you are a Black woman, I believe this is an opportunity for you. This is an opportunity for us. Why? Because when you move to other places abroad, many other countries, it is cheaper to live in other countries. Now, I want to give a caveat. It's going to depend on which country you want to go to. Now, you can't just pick up and say, I want to go to Switzerland, for example, or you want to go to Dubai and it's going to be cheaper. It's probably not. Sis, you're going to have to do your research. Make sure you watch the video, and I will link it in the description, where I talked about 5 or 6 countries where it is actually cheaper to move. But when you look at it, there are countries, low cost countries, places like Mexico, places like Panama, places like Colombia, right? Where it is, even France, where I am, that comparatively, it is going to be cheaper for you to live there than the US. Yes, it is going to be cheaper. Number one, real estate usually is much cheaper. Now, whether you're renting or buying or however, whatever the case may be, usually it's cheaper. Food is going to be cheaper. Transportation is going to be cheaper. Entertainment, cheaper. Okay. Insurance, cheaper. Healthcare insurance, definitely cheaper. But there are a number of countries that I just mentioned. I'll add a few other ones to the list. Costa Rica is going to be one. There are certain countries in Africa as well. Don't want to forget the motherland, but there are certain places in Africa where it's definitely going to be cheaper for you to live than the US. Okay. So you really have to do your homework and your research. Make sure you go on sites like Numbeo.com, where you can kind of compare the rental costs. You can compare food costs, transportation. It will tell you how much things like, a jug of milk will cost, how much a dozen of eggs will cost. So you can do your cost comparison. It will tell you how much housing, transportation, all that good stuff. You need to crunch the numbers, sis. But I believe this is an opportunity for Black women who want to move abroad. And this is one of the reasons why I keep being out here on this internet, right? There are a number of folks out here, myself included, who are telling Black women, like, sis, there is an answer. The answer probably isn't staying in the US struggling and scraping to survive like good times, okay? That probably is not the answer. The answer most likely is going to be for you to move abroad, for you to do your research and figure out where you can go abroad to live on what you make now. Chances are you will be able to live a whole lot better. It is just, when you look at America right now in terms of what the costs are and how much it costs to just make a basic living, honey, it is insane. This is not the extra. This is just a basic living, right? This is food, shelter, transportation, okay? But when you do the math and you look at it, you can live a whole lot better somewhere else. Let's talk about here in France where I am. My expenses are anywhere from 30 to 50% lower than the US. And I'm being conservative on that, okay? I live in the center of Paris. I live near the Eiffel Tower. I live near a tourist area. Baby, if I moved maybe about 20 miles away, it would be a whole lot cheaper for me to live, okay? If I moved in the suburbs, a lot cheaper for me to live. So I'm making some strategic decisions here, but I just want you to know that there are places where we can indeed live for a whole lot less. I think for many Black women, this is where it comes to cultural perspective. If you haven't traveled a lot, you just may not know, right? You may not know that there are options. Sis, we got options. There are options out here, especially if you're like me. I'm almost close to retirement, right? You see these gray hairs, right? You see these little silver. Listen, me and these silver hair, white hairs, we battle every single day. We tussle, okay? But I am closer to retirement than not. I will be 12 years away from early retirement. Okay. I'm almost 12 years away from early retirement. I am looking at retirement right, like right in the eye. With me, we here. Okay. We are here. We are here because I am closer to retirement than not. And I am thinking about how much my potential Social Security income will be, how much my pension income will be, right? How much am I collecting? What my investments look like, okay? And I'm telling you, if you've got, like most Black women, the one thing we gonna have is some 401k money set aside. We gonna have us some pensions, and we gonna have us some Social Security, right? Because we know we have worked and we worked hard. But that money is not going to stretch in the US. It's just not, sis. I hate to break it to you. I know that when I retire in like 12 years, it's going to be even worse. So it's time to have an honest conversation about what the future looks like for us as Black women and how that future is probably going to be lived in a better way outside the US. Now, what does this mean? If you can move to a country where your expenses are going to be 30 to 50% or more lower, and you can probably live better than the US, would you not consider it? Would you not consider getting a visa, right? Getting a visa, going through the official process if you have guaranteed income. So there are plenty of Black women, right, who are perhaps younger than retirement age. Perhaps you make remote income, you make remote online income, you have a business, you have guaranteed, maybe not guaranteed, but you make enough to qualify, to more than enough qualify for a visa in the country you want to move to. For most Americans, as long as you are above minimum wage, for the most part, you will qualify in most countries, right? You will qualify for a visa in most countries. What will happen is you will be able to live so much better in these other places where the expenses are less. Right now it is hard. Okay, it's hard in the US. I was just watching a friend. She posted a picture about how she on Facebook, right? She's in the DMV area. She's in DC. Well, yeah, she's closer to Baltimore. So DMV area, what is that? DC, Maryland, Virginia, right? She went to Walmart, bought some butter, and she compared the pricing of butter that was like the Walmart brand was like $6. I think the Imperial brand, or what, no, Land O'Lakes, it literally was $10. And I know for me, I've been gone for a little bit, so I don't know the day-to-day pricing as much as I used to. And even though I still go back frequently, I haven't been back home since, I haven't been back to Atlanta since what, October? And usually when I go back, I go to Atlanta and I also go home to Detroit. So it's been a little minute for me. But I am always constantly amazed at prices, at grocery store prices. Now, look, since we get inflation, we get all that. But this corporate math, man, it's not adding up because the paycheck is not getting bigger. Not at all, right? If you had told me like 2 years ago that butter for $10, I would have slapped you silly because there is no way. Not we are in a whole panini. Okay, we still in the panini. Panini is what I call the pandemic. Okay, we are still in a whole panini. All right. How is it that butter is $10? How? Please tell me how. So when you look at things like that, you are literally you going to Kroger, you're going to, whatever your supermarket is. Okay, you're going to Kroger, you're going to Walmart, you're going to Super Target, whatever. Your dollar is not going anywhere near what it used to be. It's not anywhere near. Food is high as giraffe coochie. It just is. I don't know any other way to describe it. It's just high. Okay. So how can you make it when your basic necessities and your basic expenses are super high? The price for, on average, a one-bedroom apartment in Atlanta is like 2 grand or close to it for a one-bedroom apartment. Atlanta 20 years ago was one of the cheapest places that you can move to. That's what drew us there. That's what drew me there. Moving there in 2006 with my family. Like, it is wild when you consider the costs, okay? Light bill, electricity, none of that stuff has gone down. It is, if anything, it is going up. Insurance, oh my God, healthcare insurance, forget about it, right? When you're moving to these lower cost countries, the game changer is often the healthcare insurance. So right now, we know that in the US, there is no universal healthcare, okay? There is the Affordable Care Act insurance, otherwise known as Obamacare, but that really ain't that affordable when you consider what you're paying for what you get. Don't mess around and lose your job. Please don't lose your job. If you come from a state like where I lived in Georgia, where they are purposely keeping the numbers low so that even if you make, let's say, unemployment money, which is like what, at most $350 a week. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I know when I went through some hard times years ago, I did not qualify for was it Medicare? $350 a week was too much to qualify for Medicare. And that's because Georgia is what, like a red or quote unquote blurple, red and blue state. And the governor there plays games. And because if he were to lower those numbers where it's required for Medicaid, it would mean more people would be able to have some type of insurance. And he, in the past, I know this for sure, he is actively, right, turned down billions of dollars in federal subsidies because he did not want to lower that number. So that is what we're dealing with. And it does depend on what state you are in. Okay, I know if I was in Michigan, it would be a totally different story for me. If I was in like New York, totally different story. If I was in like Minnesota, totally different story. But I'm going based upon where I was, right? So you literally don't have health insurance, or health insurance is prohibitive, right? Your health insurance is tied to your job. So don't mess around, baby. Don't mess around and lose that job. Don't mess around and get laid off. Don't mess around and get fired. Okay, maybe it's through no fault of your own. Don't get downsized. Don't have your division wiped out. All these things have happened to me. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about here. Don't have the worst happen. And you look at that Cobra. That Cobra is crazy. Who can afford Cobra? On $350 a week in Georgia. Unemployment insurance. Unemployment is the maximum, $350. I'm not talking about Minnesota where it's like $800. Okay, that's another conversation. We'll have that later. But I'm saying in the state of Georgia, I'm saying in most states, You do I have to choose between my insurance and paying my rents? Okay, I can't even live off of what I'm getting paid for unemployment. So how is it supposed to work out with this COBRA being high as I don't know what? What most folks realize is they can't afford COBRA. That employee portion that's no longer paid makes COBRA pretty much unaffordable for many people who are out of work and trying to figure out how to juggle paying the mortgage, paying the rent, paying the light bill, eating, right? How does this happen? And so, from an insurance perspective alone, this is why I want Black women to realize that there are some options out here, but they are outside of the US, sweetheart. They are not in the US of A. You can go to other countries. You can come to France, here in France, where healthcare is thought of as a right, right? Okay, you can actually get 80% of your insurance, 80% of your healthcare costs can be covered. Okay, you are reimbursed that remaining 20%, and it is not corporate controlled healthcare. Your costs are going to be so much lower. You can go to places like Colombia where healthcare is a whole lot less. You can go to places like Costa Rica, world class healthcare for pennies comparatively. You can go to places like Portugal. Now, many of these places will require you to have healthcare upon entry, right? Or they'll require you to quickly get it, or they'll have some options for you to have something until that their country sponsored healthcare kicks in. That's the case with me here in Paris, here in France rather. I have messed around and do not have, I have a private, I have a policy. I don't have the state, uh, I'm sorry, the country sponsored healthcare insurance. And that's through my fault. And I need to get that taken care of. I keep saying that, but I'm going to get it done. But can you imagine, like all these places, healthcare is available for just so much cheaper. It becomes a game changer when you are looking at how much you have to pay back home in America, especially if you are not the Medicare slash Medicaid age. Oh, or I guess Medicaid age, right? Or is it Medicare? I always get those two mixed up. Is it I think is okay. Medicare has got to be for if you are low income of any age, right? And I want to say Medicaid is if you are above the 60 plus. I think that's how it goes. If it doesn't go that way, please let me know in the comments because I definitely get them confused all the time. So, and even Medicare, is going to be, there's a cost with that that can be for some people very cost restrictive, right? It's like part A, B, C, or D or something like that. Like it is expensive. But when it comes to other countries, healthcare is affordable. It's not going to bankrupt you to go to the doctor. The price is the price. Okay, they're very clear and transparent about the pricing. There is no corporate pricing structure in terms of insurance. There is no price. It's going to vary if you are, let's say, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, or versus self-pay. You are going to know the price when you come in the door. All right, healthcare is totally different. So for healthcare alone, and I will link to my video of my experience with the healthcare market here, in terms of, I'll link it in the description of this, and how it is insane how things are back home in the US, and how when you go to other countries, how things are just so totally different. But on healthcare alone, it can really benefit Black women to move to some other places, to get a visa and go to other places, right? Where healthcare is going to be cheaper. Healthcare is going to be cheaper. So going back to, let's go back a little bit though. Let's go back to this Alice, the folks who are asset limited, income constrained, and unemployed, otherwise known as AKA check to check folks, right? So the numbers, here are the numbers. They are Americans who work and make more than the federal poverty level for a family of four, which is $31,200, or $15,060 for an individual, but they still struggle to pay for their basic needs. And so this is one of the things why I am saying to folks, it's time to level up. And leveling up may mean moving out of the country, because what many people are finding is that they're able to make less, they're able to live better on less if you make the same amount. If you can keep the USD, that's the total lifestyle hack, right? You are literally able to increase your income class. So for me, moving to Paris as a tech employee, I was able to move into an upper middle income lifestyle, based upon my salary in the US. Now in the US, I don't know about y'all, but six figures is not hitting no more. I can remember when all we thought about, I just saw, if I can make that six figures, I will be set. If I can just make six figures. Well, six figures ain't six figuring, okay? I'm not saying it's minimum wage, but it's not hitting like it used to be, especially if you've got a family. Now, for one person, it's a little bit different. But if you have a family, six figures is not the same. What is nowhere near what it used to be. Compare and contrast that too. If you moved somewhere else, six figures, baby, you are balling, honey. Do you realize that you are balling if you go to Mexico on six figures? If you go to Portugal, if you are in France on six figures, we do realize the minimum wage in France. Let me just break it down for you. The minimum wage in France is about the equivalent of like 1,300 euros, which is about, I always get the numbers. I'm bad with numbers, y'all, but it's about 13 to 1,400 in euro, which is less than about 1,700 USD um, per month. That is the visa requirement. So you just need to be able to make more than that. And we all know that you cannot afford, you can't afford nothing on, like, that's like what, 400, let's say 400 a week. Let's say 450 a week. Let's just round up 450 a week. We know that is nothing in the US. Like, if you're making that, you not you are likely in some kind of rent control department. And this is not putting anybody down. I come from a very humble background, humble beginnings. I have been there in the struggle. I understand, okay? But it's more proof that if you are making that amount, you are stuck in a life of poverty. And it is just what we talked about with these ALICE people, this acronym. They make too much to qualify for federal assistance, and but yet not enough to live the American dream. And so it comes to the point to where, again, is the American dream on life support? Like, what's going on? Inflation is not, it's not just the inflation. Inflation is a part of it, but a lot of it is just corporate greed. It's greed. It's just straight greed. We're seeing this real estate market is all corporate, right? Homes are being owned by corporations, not people. Okay? All right? Keisha don't own a house, but a real estate investment trust does. Okay? We're seeing markets like Atlanta where the level of corporate involvement in real estate should be criminal. We're seeing this around the country. So the average American isn't the one owning the homes. It is a company. It is a real estate investment trust. Okay? It's somebody's hedge fund in Greenwich, Connecticut that owns these homes. All right? So we're seeing all these things, and it's just people are not earning enough to pay their bills. And again, this video, I want to be clear. It's not to shame anybody. I don't do that on this channel. I don't agree with it. Okay? It is more so to talk about the systemic and cultural, economic injustices, that this is what lands people on this list of being a part of this, check to check, can't make it. We are mad at the system. We're not mad at the people. And the thing about it is the system keeps going on. And this is the reason why I'm saying that for many Black women, it's time to go. It's time to look at living more of your life outside of the country. It's going to be an automatic pay benefit. I was reading a story again in Business Insider, and it talked about a consultant here. He consults people in Paris, I'm sorry, in France and Italy. He consults Americans, right, who want to buy property. Now, in many cases in those two countries, you pretty much need to have they do all cash deals, especially if you are not a citizen. So he's dealing with people who have I would say, a good substantial wealth involved. Okay. But this person made a comment that for about 50 to 75K, buying a home in some areas. Now, he might not be, probably not in Paris, but he's not in Paris buying that. He's probably going to be in a region outside of Paris. But his comment was that for 50 to 75K, you're able to get a house, which is about the price of a new truck in America. And it comes upon the question, like, sis, you want that Tesla out there, or do you want a home? Like, if you had to make the choice, which one are we talking about? Do you want a home in another country where it's going to be cheaper, where you're actually going to be able to afford health insurance, where health insurance is not going to be tied to your job, where you're going to be able to afford to eat better quality foods, fresher vegetables, right? The food is not going to be killing you, okay? Where you're going to be able to afford basic transportation and have access to probably decent public transportation depending upon the country where you move, right? Do you want to live in a country to where you're not going to see your mortgage payment increasing by $1,000 or $2,000 a month, and seeing people crying about it on TikTok because their dream new home is now suddenly unaffordable? These are all the realities for many Americans right now. It's the reality, and it's the reason why I keep harping on the fact that there is an answer. But the answer is not going to be it's not going to be in the US. It's going to be elsewhere. And so we have got to be able to expand our thinking, expand our point of view, and looking at things a bit differently. I know, listen, I know your granny is like, I don't want you to go over there. Your mama, your brother, sister, your cousin, your niece, your nephews, and all told you, like, it's not safe over there. I'm here to tell you, it absolutely is. For the most part, it absolutely is safer than the U.S. Don't let them folks scare you, because when you compare the math, when you look at the crime rates in most places, and I would never tell you to move to a place that I feel is unsafe. There are plenty of places out here that I travel to. There are some places that I will not be going to because I don't feel safe there. But we're not talking about those places. We're talking about places to where you've researched on the crime rate index or whatever, and that they are lower than the U.S. I would never tell you to move to a place with more crime than quote unquote major cities and major areas of the U.S. Crime happens everywhere. We know that, but I would not tell you, me, okay, growing up where I grew up in Detroit, growing up where I grew up with crime, what it was, then moving to Atlanta and living there for 20 years, almost 20 years. I personally would not tell a Black woman who we know, um, systemically, we are not protected, okay? I would never tell a Black woman to go from one hot box to the other, okay? I just wouldn't do it. Not from a safety perspective, because I don't think that that's wise. We deal with enough right in America. So why would I tell someone to go to a place with worse potential crime? Now, crime does again happen everywhere. It happens everywhere. Crime does happen. And crime a lot of times is victims of opportunity, right? But I wouldn't tell you there are certain countries that you will not hear come out of my mouth that Black women should think about moving, because it is maybe overall unsafe for women, or definitely unsafe for Black women. So I'm always very cautious and very careful. But the main thing I want to just talk about, though, is that There is a better life out here. There is a better life. But it's going to require you, sis, to move somewhere else. It's going to require for you to pack your bags. It's going to require for you to do some research. It's going to require for you to do the mindset shift, right? To do some mindset shifts, because there are places that we can go that are cheaper, where you will be treated better. Does that mean racism does not exist? I don't believe there's a place in the world where racism does not exist. I really don't. Perhaps there is. If there is, please let me know. But overall, you'll have a better quality of life. You'll pay less, okay? Be able to live better, pay less. It's like, what's not to like about that? And so these are places, again, especially for my Black women who are closer to retirement age. Ding, 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 that's me. And when it comes to where you see yourself in the next 10, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what does retirement look like for you? Okay. Even if you are not retired, if you're making that big US money, all right, we know US salaries, there's a reason why we're paid more. There is a reason why we are paid more. Okay. US salaries are among the top paid in the world, but we also know US expenses are among the top in the world. Okay. So there is a trade off. But if you're able to make that USD and you're able to go to a lower country, baby, it is a total life hack, a total life and financial hack. And I know it was like that for me, because here it was before my tech contract ended in a couple months ago. Baby, I was living the life, honey. Okay. That salary, I was living the life. I was maintaining my property, maintaining a property in Atlanta, got a property here in Paris, had rented out part of my property, right, to lower costs, but still, I was maintaining some things, right, on that US salary. Now things have changed since the contract situation kind of shifted, but I'm just saying, no. I'm just saying. The one thing Black women we always gonna do is make some money, okay? So money, a lot of times money is not the issue, to be honest with you. Sometimes it may be, but a lot of times it's not, especially when it comes to Black women, who we tend to be the most educated, the most, the most degreed, the most job having, the most certification having, the most business having, right? I mean, these are just facts. Argue with your mama, okay? Or argue with Keisha, whoever. We're not gonna argue about these facts. But if there's one thing I know, it's Black women. And so, baby, we got the money. We got the money. Trust me, we got the money for the most part. So, do we still deal with systemic economic injustices? Absolutely. We know we earn less, okay, per hour, per salary. We know we are systemically underpaid. Again, these are facts that we're not going to argue about. With that said, right? With that said, we still got the money. We got the money. So it requires really a mindset shift, because I am telling you, I am here to tell you, you can see I'm joining you from lovely Paris, France, right? And I can tell you from firsthand experience that, baby, you can live a lot better in other places, even when you count the money you lose on the conversion, because you are going to lose money based upon the value of the US dollar compared to your local currency, right? We know that the dollar is not as strong performing as it once was, right? And so that just comes with the territory. Even with that said, you can still 30 to 50% lower where I am. Okay, and I'm in a tourist area. I could definitely be living elsewhere cheaper. Okay, I could be living in other areas of France for a whole lot less. Living in Paris, is the most one of the more expensive regions besides the south of France. Okay, so those two areas are the most expensive in France. Everything else is going to be usually a lot lower than that. but those are the two most expensive areas. I can tell you that my lifestyle, even living where I am in a very affluent area, in a tourist area, my expenses are still, I would say, about 40% lower. And 30 to 50% sounds about right. It could be even lower if we really are honest about it. So you can live better in places that, where you will not have to worry as much about inflation. And does inflation exist here? Absolutely. If and this is where it comes in terms of, with everything is going to be relative, right? Now, sure, Parisians are, people here are complaining about inflation. They definitely are. I will not say they are not. They are complaining. Everyone is going to complain. But when you compare it to the US, honey, it's like you got an automatic raise. Okay? Because I promise you, someone in the comments asked me on the other video about, like, how is it that I'm able to live here paying less than like 3K a month? And my expenses are actually well below that. To be honest with you, I was kind of overestimating. And I broke down how much it is that I'm paying. 1,200 USD for rent. That's when, because I'm paying in USD. So rent is 1,200, when it's really 1,100 euro, but 1,200 by the time you do the conversion, because remember, I'm losing about 10%. Let's see, what's my next highest bill? It's probably going to be my electricity bill, which is, it's been a cold winter here, so it's been like 200, which is, that's definitely a lot. My bill is usually is a bit higher than it should be, actually. I think that I'm in an old building, and that affects things, but my bill could be lower than that. What's my next highest bill? Probably food, which I'm looking at about 250 for food. Wi-Fi is about 40. My phone bill is about, how much is my phone bill? Like $15? No, $19 for phone, mobile phone. And the rest is just fixed pretty much. Oh, transportation is, let's just say I don't take ride sharing anymore, but it's $90 a month for the Metro Pass. If I were to take ride sharing, I would probably add maybe another, let's just say $50 per month. For ride sharing occasionally, maybe like once a week. And that's like once a week ride share. Okay. And so that's when I'm going out or going to activities that are perhaps beyond the hours of public transportation, let's just say. Or I'm doing it for convenience. But let's just say, 150 total for transportation. Um, what else? Anything else is going to be optional, right? So entertainment is optional. Okay. Clothing is going to be optional. All right. But those are my fixed expenses. And as you can see, it's even when you, even when I factor in the cost of the conversion of going from USD to Euro, I'm primarily paying with my credit card, right? There is going to be a small markup, right? Especially like Amex. A lot of places here don't take Amex. So I have to use another card, credit card, which has a bit of a higher fee. Okay. So even with all that into the equation, I am still coming out ahead. And so I want other Black women to experience this. I want other Black women to experience what it's like to live in a country where they're not trying to get an arm and a leg and a titty. Okay. They just not. All right. Um, Again, costs are going to be relative. If you talk to an average Parisian, they may have a totally different opinion. My opinion is going to be based on USD and what I know we are paid, and what I know for the most part of how much things cost in the US. Now, do I know the day-to-day pricing of certain products? I don't anymore like I used to. But I just know that things, I'm sure when I go back home, probably next month, I'm going to be amazed at how much things have gone up since I was last there in October. It is that bad. So I'm kind of preparing myself for that, but I'm telling you, there is a way out, and that way out may is probably not in the US. Now you can keep on, doing whatever it is that you're doing, right? You can try to move to a different area. You can try to think that you're going to outpace the cost of inflation, and it's just not going to work. Okay, like unless I don't know what your setup is. Unless you've got a setup to where you've got a family home and y'all are all contributing. Now, would I leave that? Probably not. I'm not going to say I wouldn't leave it. I would still maintain it. But for the most of us, we don't have that is not an option. We don't necessarily have a family home. I don't have a family home that I can just move to and say, okay, I'm paying 400 or 500 a month with everybody else. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have that. So unless you got that, you are pretty much going to be forced in this. We all in this whole thing together, right? If you're in the US, I'm encouraging Black women to solo travel, to move abroad, to look at lower price countries. Asia is another one. I didn't even deal with that continent. Asia is another one. Super cheap, depending upon where you go. All right. Bali, Thailand, cheaper than the US. There are some options. The one thing I don't want us to think that we don't have options when we do, it's just not going to be the quote unquote easy option. It's going to be the option that's going to require you to pack your bags, require you to do some research, require you to have some either remote online income or guaranteed monthly income like a pension or investments or something of that nature. It's going to require you to put the work in, sis. So if you're looking for easy, this isn't necessarily that. But what I can say is that your pocketbook, gonna thank you, okay? Because you are going to come out ahead. And that's what I want people to get the message of this particular video is that there are some options out there that are lower cost and don't involve the US. You can live better on less. You can live better in other countries where things are going to be cheaper. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much, sis. Make sure you subscribe. Also, don't forget, y'all, share, comment, and like this video. It really helps me on the YouTube algorithm. When you like the video, it tells other Black women solo travelers and other Black women who want to move abroad that this is a community they need to subscribe to. So do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, and that way more Black women will be told about this particular lifestyle, the lifestyle of traveling abroad, the lifestyle of moving abroad, the lifestyle of solo travel. All right, sis, until the next time, I will talk to you guys later.